just get upset and just try to close the door, and then I pour myself more into work or the business, and that just makes it worse and not bury things under the carpet, because otherwise it becomes a big wall. Not to make compromise in these disagreements, but how do you make a good decision? Like, one person is going to feel left out. Like, I gave up too much.
Yeah.
Right? Then you make sure your home is happy.
Yeah.
Then you'll be able to perform.
Why are we saying yes to things? Are we saying yes because we feel like nobody else can do this nonprofit or volunteer, or we just don't want to say no?
Perfect.
Because that can be challenging.
Welcome to the Payal Nanjiani Leadership Podcast. This is your host, Payal Nanjiani, and each week we bring you an inspiring thought leader from around the world to help you unlock the success within you and for you to become a great leader. Thanks for joining me. And today we have with us in the studio none other than Robert and Kay Lee, co-founders of I61 Inc. And they join us to talk about leadership begins at home. Robert and Kay Lee, welcome to the podcast. It's an honor to have you all here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Payal.
Yes, thank you so much. This is going to be fun.
Thank you. We're looking forward because you both are the ones who you all assist married entrepreneurs. You help people create a better work-life balance, and that is such a thing these days. In fact, for many years, this has been out there. But let us go back a little bit in time. How did you all get to where you are today? What inspired you to start this journey?
Well, I think sometimes when you talk about the inspiration, a lot of times it comes from your background and your childhood, right? And so both Kaylee and I kind of grew up in similar backgrounds in a sense. My dad was a pastor, her dad was a business owner. What happens is, like in my house, was my dad was so focused on the ministry that a lot of times the family took a back seat. So, and he learned from his parents, work hard, work hard, work hard, and provide, right? And so, of course, as I'm growing up, I'm doing the same thing. Whatever I'm doing, I want to be great at, whether it's sports or in school, and then get into college, and then you get into your career, and you want to excel at everything. And then inevitably, you're always looking for saying yes to all these opportunities, especially when it comes professionally, and even if it's volunteer work, and when people are asking you for help. For me, when friends are asking for help, I'm saying yes. When I'm getting asked to be on a board, I'm saying yes. And of course, career, whenever there's an opportunity for advancement or promotion, or even a project that make me look good and put it on the resume, I'm saying yes. And then inevitably, my calendar just filling up with stuff. And the yeses I'm saying to everything outside the house means I'm inevitably saying no to Kay Lee, and my other personal relationships. And so that's how your life gets out of balance, because you're saying yes to too many things, and it can be great things, right? Even if I'm doing volunteer work at church, but inevitably you lose focus on what's most important in your life, and that starts at home. And so, for my career, and even when I started consulting, launching into consulting business, I started doing the same thing, working a lot of hours till 2 a.m. And then it just wore me out. And then, of course, wore her out, right? Waiting for me.
So what, like you said, it just wore you out and you were working so much. Did you see the impact on your personal life?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah. On the weekend would roll around and
Kaylee would know it better.
He'd take the dog out for a walk. He'd sit down in his chair and he'd just fall asleep. He was so tired. I'm like, I want to go do some things. I'm thinking to myself, but he's so tired and exhausted that there's no way. He doesn't have anything left in him to give.
Yeah. So even though I'm saying, I didn't work on weekends, but, I'm so exhausted physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually that I'm with Kay Lee. Like, we could be out doing something, but I'm so exhausted that I'm not really present. Right. And it was after I left my corporate job and just consulted full time and kind of had a regular schedule again, where people that I hadn't seen for a little bit, they're like, "Oh, you look great," because I must have looked terrible before. So it definitely takes a toll on you, even though you don't realize it, because you can just push through and work. Right. At least for me, I'll push through and get stuff done. But the personal life, that's where it gets the back seat, and they get the rest of me, which is not usually the best of me.
True. And that's why I said Kay Lee is the one who would be able to know exactly where it hit, at that point of time. But like you said, you work till 2 a.m. You're busy with the work and everything. So a lot of people are in that zone even now. I mean, you realized it. You started this entire new journey with Kaylee, and both of you are doing this awesome work now. So what types of issues, what types of problems do people actually carry back home that impacts their life, personal life?
Oh, everything.
Yeah. No,
Um,
well, and it can go vice versa. Like
yeah.
if you are having conflict at home with your spouse or your family,
Mhm.
it rolls right over into work. It
Yeah.
affects you. At least for me, I can't like just leave one conflict at home and then go to work and act like everything's fine. I remember some time ago Robert and I were having a discussion and we are getting ready to get on a Zoom call with a group of people that we were leading and facilitating. And I was upset about something and we had to get it resolved really quickly, or at least in a
Um,
place where we could talk about it later, because there's no way myself I could get on a Zoom call and act like everything's fine when I'm upset with them and there's other couples, you know what I mean? That's just not me.
Right.
And and yeah, you talk about carrying, either your home, what's going on at home into work and vice versa. When I've seen two things. Like if you have a conflict at home, and especially inevitably, it's going to be something about you're working too much or something
Yeah,
around
yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then I get upset at Kaylee, and so what happens is I actually become worse, where I want to spend more time at work because I'm getting accolades at work. When I'm doing good with my clients, or when I was working in corporate, managers give me praise for the work I'm doing, then that feeds me, and I just want to do that more, and I want to get away, right? Because she doesn't appreciate me, she doesn't get it, she doesn't understand that I'm providing for the family, all the trips that we take is because we're making money, all that kind of stuff, right? That's the stuff that goes into my head and a lot of the clients that we deal with. And so it kind of becomes a vicious cycle where instead of resolving the issue and saying, "Hey, okay, what do you mean, you want me home at more? I mean, I got to work, but how do we deal with this?" Right? But instead of trying to resolve the issue, we just get upset and just try to close the door, and then I pour myself more into work or the business, and that just makes it worse, right? And so, as Kaylee was kind of alluding to, is like, how do we resolve these issues in a very peaceful, constructive way, not just throwing barbs at each other. You don't understand me. Well, you're not spending enough time with home with the kids and us, and both people are hurting, and we're just
Right.
throwing barbs and triggering
Yeah.
each other instead of really resolving the issue.
True. And I think somewhere it's very difficult to draw that line, that we tend to forget that whatever we are at home, we carry to work and vice versa, and more from home to work. There are times where we just go to work to escape the entire home life, right?
Hmm.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there is so much that we carry, and then we expect our people to perform well. We expect them to have great results. But I'm sure somewhere you must have seen in your life right now as the co-founders of I-61, and with this journey as a coach, I'm sure you all must have seen a lot of home relations impacting work performance. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely emotionally it's going to affect you at the very
Mhm.
least. You don't think it does, but what's going to happen is when you're upset at your wife or your husband or whatever, even the kids at home, you go to work and sometimes you just take it out on your team. And so you actually become more
Yeah,
micromanaging, you just become more controlling, your temper's short. It's all this stuff you just carry with you and you don't realize it, but you do. And then I remember when I was in corporate, we had a manager, and we can always tell when she was dating somebody versus when she was not, and when she
uh-huh.
was happy versus not, because it played out in how she micromanaged, how she did. So,
Absolutely.
so you bring that into your work or your business, whether you realize it or not.
But it's not easy to realize, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
you observed that this was happening with her, and when she was dating, when she was upset. But I'm sure the individual, I don't think that individual realizes that it's the stress of the relationship that they're carrying to work.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. And so that's why that's the tricky thing. But we got to get to a point, at least for Kaylee and I. Number one, it's we got to learn how to just resolve issues and not bury things under the carpet because otherwise it becomes a big wall.
So
One
are
issue
there
after
ways,
another.
are there some ways that you can resolve issues that can help?
Well, I know one of the things that we do, we have weekly meetings because we
Hmm.
work together. So every Monday at 3:30 we have our meeting and we have that down on the calendar, protect that time. And if there's something we need to talk about that's not an emergency, we know we can talk about that then. And I'll just like journal it down so I remember. So that makes it nice thinking, okay, it's not going to be like, I want to talk about this, but we never know when it's going to happen kind of
Yeah,
like thing.
yeah,
Because, usually there's one that wants to talk about, the other one not so much.
correct.
So we're like chasing them around. Like I'm like want to talk things over. So and Robert's like, oh, not now. And so I'm chasing them around the house. Like, well, when is it? When is it? And it's always on my mind. But if I know there's a placeholder, like Monday at 3, then I kind of calms me down. And I'm like, okay, we can talk about it then to discuss it.
Yeah, we have what we call rules of engagement, and it's things that we agree to. Number one, we got to resolve the issue, right? If one of us is upset about something, or just doesn't have to be upset, but there's an issue we got to talk about, it's got to be talked about instead of sometimes there's topics like say finance that
Yeah,
one person, one spouse is going to want to push it away. Oh, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. No, that's not an answer. We have to agree on when we're going to talk about it. Because otherwise, as Kaylee was saying, one's going to be chasing the other, and then the other's going to be upset, and I'm just going to be upset because she's nagging on me and all that stuff. But we have to resolve the issues. So, in that rules of engagement, we do agree we'd have to set a time and date to
yeah,
discuss an issue, and because a lot of times, like Kaylee will come in the office, she wants to talk about something, but it's not a good time because I'm in the middle of something, right? And so I just say, hey, now's not a good time, but can I talk in 30 minutes or at the end of the day or tomorrow or on our weekly meeting? So we come to a decision on when we're going to talk about it. So even if now is not a good time, we figure out when it is. And then in the discussion, especially high trigger conversations like finance or the kids or whatever, is we make sure we don't trigger each other. So in the rules of engagement, we have a what's called out of bounds.
uh-huh.
And so those are typically triggers, like, huffing and puffing or walking out or, like, yeah, like Kaylee's, grew up in
Being
the house, so
sarcastic.
sarcasm. Yeah, that's me.
Because I grew up with a lot of that, but people
Right.
actually meant it when they said it. And Robert likes to do that because
With the
the
guys.
guys.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, please don't do that with me because that really crushes my
She
spirit.
says you can be sarcastic as all you want with the guys, but not with me. And so I've had to learn to really hold my tongue on that because it's true. There's usually a lot of truth in that sarcasm, but we kind of play it off as a joke. So those are examples of things that are out of bounds, is those triggers. And so when those things are out of the way, then it provides an environment to really have a productive conversation because I'm not getting upset and then throw a sarcastic barb at her, right? Which that doesn't help. I mean, I know that, but
Right.
sometimes it just feels good to do it, but it doesn't help. And so we've just learned to be able to be respectful in these conversations and avoid those triggers. And that
True.
alone is going to help.
Well, and I just want to say to the ladies, we know what the triggers are, ladies. So it's not okay to go around triggering your spouse because
Absolutely.
that's not helping at all, even though we really want to. It's out of bounds because it's not good.
Right. And I think, like you just said, it's from what I'm hearing is there's sort of adjustments that you do with each other. And like you mentioned that this is something which, you want to resolve, you will resolve it, you will talk it out. And it reminds me one rule between me and my husband that we've always had for these many years of our marriage is we don't go to bed angry.
Hmm.
So that is, it just reminds me when you say that you resolve it, you have a time for resolving, and we have a time that we don't go to bed angry. We have to talk it out before we sleep. And I think that has somewhere
Yeah.
helped us a lot to maintain that peace and that balance that is needed in life.
Oh,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Or at least get to a place where you feel like, okay, we're might not have it exactly resolved, but we're in a good place where we can pick up the conversation the next day or whatever
Yeah,
and
but I'm
finish the
sure you have
conversation.
also come across a lot of incidences where one person wants to talk it out. Mainly, it's the women at times who will want to talk it out, and the spouse or someone in the family will ignore that feeling, will ignore that emotion, will not speak it out, will push it under the carpet, and everything becomes nice again, back in life, and they just start back without resolving it to again come back in that same cycle again and again and again.
Hmm.
Have you experienced anything like this with any of your clients or anything?
Yeah, I mean, even I mean, just for me personally, I'm not. I like to avoid conflict, historically. So, but through the years, you learn. You're like, wait, it's not good. It's not healthy for the relationship. And so, even with our
Because the cycle
clients,
continues after that otherwise.
yeah, it's only going to get worse. And then
Yeah.
what's going to happen, even if another disagreement comes up, even if you're not talking about the original one you're trying to avoid, it's going to come up emotionally in the next argument, because the more things you stuff down, the more heightened and the more aggressive these disagreements become,
Yeah.
because all that emotional baggage that you're saving up. And so with our
Oh,
clients,
yeah. Oh, yes.
we just share our own story, and then just get them to realize, this is going on, right? They know, if just as long as you get them to think about it, that this is just getting worse and worse and worse, and we got to resolve things one by one. And then that's where the tools come in, is helping them understand how to have these conversations, because I think both parties, I mean, both husband and wife do want to resolve the issue. We just don't know how to do it, because if for me, growing up in a household that didn't do conflict well, I didn't have an understanding of how to do it. It was just arguing. So
True.
that was my pattern and understanding of how to resolve issues. And so obviously we don't, that's not healthy. And so just like our clients, same thing. They grew up in an environment that didn't have healthy conversations. And so we just teach them how to have it. And once they understand how to do it, it's still rough in the beginning, but the more they practice, the more they do, just like with us over the years, now we get better at it. We still have disagreements, but we get over it a lot faster, because, disagreements are good. We just have two different perspectives, and then we come together to find a good solution, right?
True.
And so that's even the perspective we try to pass to our clients, like we have for us. It's like, these disagreements are healthy. You have different perspectives, and there's some truth in both sides. And you just have to understand of not to make compromise in these disagreements, but how do you make a good decision?
Yeah.
Because compromise to us is kind of like a bad word, because you're just trying to
Yeah.
shave
Yeah.
off
Right.
things
And
to
it
try and
makes the
meet in the
other
middle.
person feel quite second in
Yeah, exactly.
line.
One person's going to feel left out. Like, I
Right.
gave up too much. I
Yeah.
gave up too much. So we say, don't compromise. Just come up with a good decision. Just have that mindset of, let's come up. What is the best decision for this for us? And I remember Kaylee, a few years ago, we had a disagreement. It was probably about finances, about money, and she said her piece, and then she says, "I'm going to leave the final decision up to you. I know you'll make the best decision for us."
Hmm.
And for some reason, that word "us" just gonged in my head, and I realized, oh, this isn't about me, right? Because when you get in an argument, it's kind of about me. It's
We
my
want to
ego.
win.
But when she said you'll make the best decision for us, I all of a sudden felt the weight of that decision that I never felt before,
Right.
because I wasn't trying to prove myself anymore. It was like, oh, this is impacting us, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm like, oh, that was a total game changer for me when she said that, and it was probably the timing of it. But yeah, she's right. We got to make the best decision for us. It's not what I think is right or what she think
Right.
is right. It's what is the best decision for us.
That's so nice. And I like it's very interesting that you use the word emotional baggage, because I believe that a lot of our emotional baggages we carry to the work, and that doesn't allow us to perform well. It keeps on playing in our mind. And that same emotional baggage, we also take it out on we bring it out on our teams, we bring it out to our bosses, and then the whole blame game starts. And, we get really frustrated. We don't understand that the root is coming from home. And like you rightly said, leadership begins at home. So there must be ways in which you can be successful without sacrificing your relationships, whether it's marriage, whether it's your home. What are some of the ways that you can do that?
Yeah, I think for starters is taking back control of your time. I think, like, as I said earlier, is we just tend to say yes to everything,
Hmm.
especially when it's opportunity.
And it could be good
True.
things.
And then even in our schedule, the way we pack our schedule, first things first, if you really want to have success on both, the only way to have success on both sides, at home and at work, is to make sure you prioritize home first, and then you
True.
backfill everything else. And so one thing we do is we look at our calendars, and we'll say that with our new clients. Where are your priorities? We ask what their priorities are when they're talking about their family and their marriage and all that. I said, look at your calendar, and does your calendar reflect your priorities? And so if not, then the first thing we do is in the calendar start to book those priorities. So first thing in the morning with Kay Lee, those quiet moments, that time in prayer, that's first thing that's blocked out. Monday afternoons, it's blocked out. Those date nights, those are blocked out. We start looking at vacations or weekend getaways, right? We block those out. We plan ahead and block them out. And that way, and we hold true to that. Now, every once in a while, there's some caveats, there's some emergencies or whatever, but that's not the rule, right? We just make sure whatever our priorities are, let's put that down first, because if you're like us, we kind of live and die by our calendars. And so whatever's in our calendars gets our focus, right? And so we make sure that's first. That still allows you a lot of time to do your business and your career. But then you make sure your home is happy.
Yeah.
Then you'll be able to perform well. And these are just, and everything we're talking about right now of how to do conflict and our calendars, taking control of time, you do that at work too. Is how do you have healthy conversations with your team, with your managers, right? Have these rules of engagement. In fact, I know some companies in the boardroom, they do have, in effect, a rules of engagement, how we have these discussions. So it works not just at home, but it also works in business. And you'll have a better, healthier culture when you are able to have these tough conversations at work with your team, with your managers, and all that, right? And your time, the same thing. A lot of times at work, we're just running, instead of saying, wait, where is the most productive use of my time? And let's make sure we block out time to get focused on doing some heavy work, and then not just be filled with just meetings all the time.
Because a lot of times we just fill it with business and work stuff, and then we're like, say, oh, we don't have time for the family.
True. Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
No, I just wanted to expand a little bit what you said, that these are some of the things, and then we have to keep that time, like you both said. And early on, Robert had mentioned that he was the person who would work till 2 a.m., would continuously be into that zone. So I would ask Robert first, and then to you, Kay Lee, that Robert, what was the one thing that you actually did, just the one thing that helped you balance your personal and professional life?
Yeah, so go back to that 2 a.m. example. I remember I was literally sitting at this desk at almost 2 a.m. and I'm just realizing I'm just exhausted and this isn't good. Katie was, because she grew up in an entrepreneurial household, she was saying, I know it's just the season until you transition into, the business full time. And she was being gracious about it, but I was like, it's still not fair to her that, during the week, okay, let's knock it out, whatever. But then on the weekends, how do I be present? And so I said, okay, what if I set a boundary of time? So I was just working just indefinitely. So I said, okay, I want to get to bed by 11, right? So that's 3 hours a night extra of sleep that I'm getting. That's 15 hours a week, right? That's two nights of sleep, basically, that I'm getting. That's what I wasn't getting. And then now that's what I'm going to get back. And what that did was it forced me to realize what was productive work at my desk versus what was just keeping me busy, and just because I think when we don't put a boundary of time limitations on, we will just work indefinitely because there's always something to do, right? And so the first thing for me to be successful at home and business was that boundary of time, that limitation actually made me more productive. And I got more done because I was focusing on productive work, and I looked at all the stuff that was just keeping me busy. I was just checking emails all the time when I just should put it just for, certain periods of the day to check emails as opposed to always checking it every time it pings.
Okay.
Different, just reading random emails and just not answering back right away, or just there's all this stuff that was just keeping me busy that it really helped me forced me to audit what was just busy work versus productive work, and make sure I focus more time on the productive work. And that
That's
got me
really
to bed
nice.
by
I
11.
like what you said. Busy
Yeah.
was productive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what helped me balance my life. I got my sleep back, and then the time I had with Kay Lee, I was there.
Nice.
Right?
And I'm sure Kay Lee has also felt that. So Kay Lee, for you, what was that one thing that helped you bring that balance?
You know what is my calendar? Planning things out. I tend to be more spontaneous. Robert tends to be more the planner. So if it was up to me, we'd probably never go on a vacation. I want to go on a vacation. I love the idea, but I just never put it on the calendar. You know what I mean?
True.
So Robert
Yeah.
will be like, I want to go snow skiing. I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. He's like, when do you
Yeah.
want to go? I'm like, I don't know.
Exactly. And then if you just take it unplanned, unscheduled, you start to feel that guilt,
Mm-hmm. And then
True.
too,
Okay.
are you getting your priorities done? If it's not on the calendar, like, oh, I need to get this done today, but I'm doing all this other stuff that's just busy, but it's not productive and it's not moving me forward.
Right.
Like Robert was saying with time management. So I need to put down what are the three things I want to get done today
Okay. Okay. I think that's
that are
great.
priorities.
Wow. So coming towards the wrap of this, what is your advice, your biggest piece of advice that you both would give to our audience who are really looking forward to their life and success?
You go first.
You go ahead.
Okay. I just say, don't accept the status quo. I think when it comes to the lack of balance in our life, we just think that's how it's got to be because we're growing up in a society of hustle and grind.
Yeah.
And especially in entrepreneurship, they say, don't expect a personal life, for the first 5 years until you build this thing. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because we believe it, as
Mhm.
opposed to, no, how do I do this better? Even in the midst of building a business. And it's going to take hard work, no doubt. But in the midst of that, how do I make sure I still prioritize home and realize it really doesn't take a lot of time to prioritize your marriage and your kids. It just takes intentionality. So, like I said, if all I did, if I had a busy stretch in business, if I just spent that 15 hours, 15 minutes a day every morning with Kay Lee and just connect, see how she's doing, how can I help you today, and give her praise and I love you, you're so beautiful, right? If I did that 15 minutes a day, which I do, but if all that's all we got done, right, for this stretch, we would still be good
Wow.
because I'm giving her the first part of it and she knows I care. We just have a busy stretch right now. But all that to say is just that's just an example of it doesn't take a lot of time. It just takes very intentional time to commit to your family in order to be good there. And that still leaves you a lot of time to succeed in business.
Wow.
And
And Kelly, what would yours be?
I would say boundaries. For this season that you're in, what are the things that are your priorities that's going to move you forward for your business and for your home as well? Because the seasons change. And maybe something was working in the past, but it's not working anymore.
Yeah.
And why are we saying yes to things? Are we saying yes because we feel like nobody else can do this nonprofit or volunteer, or we just don't want to say no?
Perfect.
Because that
I
can be
love
challenging.
People pleasers like me, it's
Hmm.
hard to say no.
Oh, wow. Those were, I
And
think,
so
some great. Yeah.
And so that just takes time away from your family and takes time away from doing things that you really
Want to
love to do
do. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you love to do and things that really fill you up. Because there can be a lot of things that are good things that you want to do, but maybe just not in the season. Like when we were doing our book
Yeah. Yeah.
tour,
Yeah. Yeah. True.
there was a lot of good things we had to say no to because there's just
Yeah.
no way we didn't have the capacity to do it
I
all and do
agree. I
it
agree.
well.
That word saying no is so important. Oh my God. I think you both have touched such great points. The conversation is such that it can just keep going. But nevertheless, thank you so much to both of you to be here on this podcast and share your insights.
You're welcome,
Oh, thank you
Payal.
for
Thanks
having
for having
us.
us. I'm glad we could make this work.
Thank you. And this one's for our listeners. This is Robert and Kaylee and Payal Nanjiani wishing you loads of success in your career life. God bless.